Alright, so in this video we're going to be going over the hands, and we're going to be starting off with a block in. So in this we're going to be creating a cube, and we're going to be shaping it to be a finger. The finger shape is pretty standard. It's, the nail I usually like to go protruding more forward than the finger, the back of the finger. And I add a couple of loops in there just to kind of shape it up a little bit. And right now I'm just kind of like putting in the knuckle area. This will be remeshed, so don't really worry too much about going into uber details. But here I am just kind of adding in the volumes, adding in the knuckles, adding in the finger meat, and adding in the back knuckles, so making those protrude further down. Just kind of helps with shaping up the finger and getting it a little bit more um, I don't know, finger-like, if you will. Here I am using the loop tools inside of Blender to relax the tip of the finger, just to make the geometry a little bit more nice and easier to kind of read. And yeah, I'm not going into too much detail with this. It is just going to be used as a base. So here I am setting the origin to the bottom of the finger. That way I can place these a little bit easier. Uh, And now we're going to be making the palm, and this is going to be just a regular cube. I'm going to add some loops in here so that I can shape it, make it a little bit more thinner on the y-axis, and adding in a few more loops so I can continue to shape it from the top view. And as you can see, that setting the origin to the bottom of the geometry really helps for placing it. It allows me to rotate on that pivot. And so we're just kind of keeping the middle finger and the ring finger together. That's usually how the hand is supposed to go. And then we're fanning down the pinky and kind of just rotating these in a general kind of way that we're going to be using for the base. All right, so using the same finger, we're going to be making the thumb. Roughly the thumb, if you take the length, the full length of the thumb, take away all of the meat of the thumb, and then to the tip of the thumb from the base of the thumb. It's usually the same length as the fingers, so that's why I grab the fingers and then I just use the base of the thumb to kind of make that palm meet after placing it in that area. Here I'm adding again more edge loops to kind of help shape the thumb area of the palm. And now we're going to be deleting some loops and sliding some other ones up just so that we can help, so that helps us create a little bit more of that thumb kind of silhouette. And we're going to be kind of tapering the base of the finger area of the palm a little bit more and kind of sliding those towards the fingers just to make that area a little bit more thinner. And just kind of overall just trying to get it to look like a hand, Um, don't like I said, don't worry too much about the details. Just kind of, you know, here I am making the base of the fingers a little bit more thicker with a proportional editing, pushing the palms in again, just trying to kind of nicely connect everything. Using the edge flow or the edge loops to kind of give me that volume and give me the silhouette that I'm looking for. Trying to make the fingers look a little bit smaller and more petite by kind of increasing the size of the palm. And now I'm just trying to make sure everything is connected, so that I don't have any like weird holes. Now I'm rotating the fingers just to make sure that, they're all nice and straight. So we're rotating around and we're making sure that everything is straight. So you can use the remesh modifier if you're not sure how this is going to look when you bring it in and remesh it. So here I am just kind of like organizing the fingers a little bit better, making sure that they're, just overall just easier to sculpt. Again, keeping the middle finger and the ring finger together in the center of the palm. One thing I did need to do was I did need to create a wrist, but here we are just kind of remeshing it. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to sculpt it inside of Blender, I'm not going to bring it into my project. I'm actually just going to sculpt it into here so that I can get kind of like a nice base to work off of. We're just smoothing out the silhouette, smoothing out the shapes, getting rid of those hard creases so that it looks a little bit better when we bring it in. The reason why I sculpted inside of this is just because a new scene is easier to work with. You don't have all that geometry lagging in the background. And here I am just connecting the meat of the top of the palm to the thumb, and just kind of smoothing out that thumb area, because usually in this position the palm is pretty flat on the back side. So on the palm side of the hand, it's pretty flat, so you want to keep that in mind when you're doing this. Now, don't be discouraged if your hand looks like shit, because I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my god, this looks like crap. But the more you work with it, the more time you work with it, the better it's going to start to look. So just don't worry too much about how it looks right now. Just kind of get closer and closer to your goals with each and every brush stroke. That's the whole goal. So at the base of the thumb meeting the skin of the palm, it's going to get a little bit thicker, simply because you have a joint in there that helps you obviously rotate and grab. So that's usually why I thicken up that part of the thumb. And here I am just kind of like bringing out that wrist. You don't necessarily need to do this, but I did this because it does help with shaping up the hand a little bit better. And definitely use references. I don't know if you saw at the start of the video or if it was too quick, but I am using references for this because I don't really like to not use references when it comes to hand. I try to get them a little bit more accurate. I'm not the greatest when it comes to hands or even just anatomy in general, but I am practicing all the time, and I am trying to use references as much as I can. So just remember to use references every single time you don't understand how something works, because it does help you to get more accurate every single time, and you end up essentially remembering that. So here I'm just kind of trying to block in the meat of the palm. There are I think 3 main areas of meat on the palm, and I'll show references as I go along. And trying to just inflate the knuckle area out a little bit. So the knuckles are going to be the fattest part of the fingers, and then it's going to lead down to the tips of the fingers, which gradually get smaller as it gets to the tips of the fingers. And I'm just trying to make the silhouette a little bit more organized, a little bit more nicer. I'm just worried about the silhouette. Just like we did with the female, I'm mostly worried about the silhouette. I'm not worried about the details. Right now, I'm just worried about the silhouette. Does it look right? Does it look accurate? Does it look accurate enough to where it can give me an idea as to how I can get it to look a little bit better? As you can see, I'm not making those fingers too thick when it comes to that, and I'm also making the transition of the knuckles a little bit better when it goes into the fingers. So the transition from the knuckles into the fingers, I want to kind of make sure that those are transitioning nicely and softly, not too harsh. You don't want these big old knuckles and then then you have fingers. You want to make sure that it's gradually going into the fingers. I'm not too worried about the wrist area because I know that I'm going to be merging this with the female and I'm going to be cleaning it up, so I'm not too worried about that, because I'm just going to use her wrists to finish this. But here I am pushing the inner parts of the knuckles back because on the hands, you actually the meat of the palms goes more forward than the knuckle area on the top, and it makes this slope. So you want to make sure that you're getting that slope, that plane, when you make the fingers, or excuse me, when you make the hands. And here I am again pushing that up and trying to pull that meat of the knuckles back a little bit so I can make that little plane, that soft little transition. Again, depending on how realistic your character is going to be, you don't necessarily have to do this, but again, I am trying to shoot for accuracy, so I am doing this. Okay. Again, just kind of building out those tendons that run down the fingers. Again, trying to just make it look a little bit more accurate. And sometimes I just do brush strokes and then I don't like it, so I end up just getting rid of it. And here I am just kind of messing around with the silhouette, trying to see what looks good and what doesn't. Every single time you do a brush stroke, you're you're teetering on that edge of whether it looks too much like a male hand or an older hand, and you really have to be careful. So here I am just kind of messing with these kinds of things and trying to get an idea as to what kind of shapes I want to go for. Um, so it's always good to kind of like mess around and see what comes, what looks good and what doesn't. Bringing the meat of the thumb up a little bit more. And overall just kind of making it look a little bit more organized. Changing the mat cap yet again to kind of help with the overall look. And here I am just kind of drawing in the planes that I'm seeing in my head, the transitions. Um, Trying to help you visualize what I'm seeing in my head. And again, just kind of fixing that knuckle transition. Making the top parts of the hands a little bit more thicker. Giving it a little bit more meat. And let me know if you guys want to do feet as well. I'm still on the fence about like making the feet because I'm not sure if I want to make the feet for this character. But please let me know if you would want to see that. All right, so here I am kind of drawing how I'm seeing the fanning of the fingers and how I'm envisioning how they're going to be with the palm. And now I'm just kind of like I'm showing you that the middle and the ring finger should be sticking together. They should be like one. And then the fingers, they kind of go backwards. The base of the fingers actually go back, and then the skin transition is what kind of makes that webbing. So make sure you're always thinking about that when you're sculpting the hands. You know that the fingers actually go further back than what's visible because the skin in between the fingers is what's kind of making it look like they end there, but it's not. They actually extend a little bit further past the skin. Again, making sure you're looking at it from all angles. Don't just look at it from like, certain angles and then get, lose sight of what you're trying to do. Make sure you're looking at it from top, bottom, three-quarter, all kinds of weird angles. Here I am showing you that the fingers are tapering down into the palm and the palm should be getting a little bit thicker. And then there's two types of tapering. There's the finger tapering that gets towards the knuckles, and then there is the entire palm tapering that goes from the base of the fingers to the wrist. So make sure you're also remembering that. I do end up actually taking a break. Here I am just kind of trying to, scrape and flatten the planes a little bit. I didn't really like the look of that, so I just kind of like not, I just kind of didn't do that. I end up also trying to pinch the knuckles. Don't really like that either, but to each his own. I ended up kind of keeping the knuckle pinches, but I ended up smoothing them down a lot more because I didn't like them. So I honestly recommend not doing that because it just kind of looks cheesy. Unless you're going for like a stylized look, then I would say like kind of make it look a little bit better than I did. But yeah. This is just landmarks to help me when I start the retopo process of where the knuckles are going to be. Again, more tapering from the top or from the front. Okay, so now we're doing some more cleanup after taking a break from it, we're doing a little bit more cleanup. You can see that our mat cap has changed yet again. This is something that I do often. I'll kind of like leave the project alone for a minute, maybe play a game or, um, go do something. And then kind of even while I'm just like playing the game, I'm also observing things in the game, like how are their hands made, or in the movies, like how are the, how's the anatomy on the female or how's the anatomy on the male characters. It's something I do often. So, just make sure you're taking breaks often. And here I am checking my references, looking over my references. And this is where I'm actually starting to build in the tendons. I use the line version of the stroke to kind of build in those tendons, just to give me kind of like an idea as to where those are going to be, so I can kind of sculpt around those. And I'm trying to smoothen out this part, but it won't smooth out, so I just kind of go in and try to fix it. But yeah, like I was saying, just kind of take a break and refresh your mind. And, when you come back to it, does your, project look the same? Does it look good or still, or does it look bad? And here I am just kind of showing you how I see the thumb, the silhouette of the thumb. It's usually kind of like, I don't know. The thumb is really weird. It kind of looks like a bowling pin in a way from that angle. But yeah, that's how I think about it. And again, just kind of softly building in that thumb palm area of the meat. But yeah, when you come back, does your project look the same? Has it got, does it look like it's not, you know uh not bad or worse? Because like when you leave a project and you come back, it'll usually look worse than what it did when you left it. And usually that's a good sign that you are learning from your mistakes. So um, I kind of go in here and I try to learn from my mistakes. All right, so here we are in Blender. We are going to be preparing her um, to fix. So we're just kind of adding a cube in, and uh, we're going to use this as a boolean to cut. I know that there's certain tools inside of the sculpting mode that allow you to kind of cut out that geometry, but it wasn't working for me, so I had to do it this way. And this was actually faster. The other method actually froze up my PC. So, all right. So now that we've cut that geometry out, we can actually hide those cubes. You can see what I did. I actually ended up, cutting out the hand area so that we can add in our new hands. And you can see I have a couple bases here. Um, and I'm gonna place the cursor at the top by hitting Shift right click, holding Shift and dragging the right click on your mouse, and that'll drag your cursor around. And then I'm going to set the pivot to the cursor so that way I can place the hands a little bit easier. So you can do it this way, and you can also, if you actually pivot your cursor or drag your cursor to her wrists, and then if you hit Shift S, you can then set the object to the cursor. So that'll actually place the pivot in that area. So it's a little bit faster than what I did, but at the same time, you know, you can do it however you want. All right, so I ended up mirroring that using her as the reference for the mirror, so that way we can have independent mirroring on these objects. Even in sculpt mode, if your object is rotated, scaled, and weird, as long as you didn't as long as you didn't apply those rotation scales in the location, you should still be able to locally sculpt on the hand, on both sides of the hand, which I'll demonstrate. So here I am just kind of pushing the pectorals up a little bit more because I noticed those are kind of weird, and I'm actually also fixing some of the things that I didn't really like when I stepped away and came back to the project. I didn't really like how small her deltoids were. I wanted her to have a little bit more meat on her body, so I ended up kind of smoothing that area out and making the clavicles a little less prominent. And I'm also smoothing out the neck region and the sternum, the top of the sternum, simply because I just didn't like how deep everything was and how kind of stylized it was. So I wanted to kind of give her a little bit more meat on her bones for those transitions. All right. So here we are going back into there. We're going to be changing our viewport again, just a comfortable sculpting environment. And as you can see, as I start to sculpt, I'm actually sculpting on both sides of the hand. I didn't want that. So I ended up applying the location, rotation, and scale of the object so that I can sculpt on both hands. And yeah, actually ended up, in the end, it actually ended up looking pretty good. This hand's a lot better than the basic hand that I made originally. And for the wrist, you kind of want to have like a box. It's not so much as a circular. It's kind of more like a box because of the tendons and the bones and the joints. It kind of creates like a more box shape rather than a kind of circular shape for the wrist. So you kind of want to have that going on. I'm kind of like messing around with things that make it look more appealing in the viewport. Doesn't really matter if you do that or not. It's just something visually that I do to help me be able to see what's going on in the viewport. Here I am flattening down the top and just kind of cleaning up this. You'll notice I spend a lot of time on the sides of the wrist and trying to flatten those down because, again, the wrist is shaped like a square. It's shaped like a cube. It's got that kind of like harsh fall off. So here I'm flattening the side, kind of building up the top volume of the wrist because of the joints are more visible at the top of the wrist than they are on the bottom. So I'm kind of building up the tops of the wrists just ever so slightly and then kind of shaving down the sides right here, as you can see. Making sure that those tendons are more visible. Building up those tendons in the thumb area. And as you can see, this is a kind of problem in the silhouette that I don't like. So I end up trying to kind of fix this a little bit more. But again, these are details, like some of these are details that we will definitely be going over. This, I didn't like this transition, so I kind of like smoothing that out because I don't want her to have too harsh of transitions. I want to keep the transitions very smooth, very, um, you know, decent looking. Yeah, when we remeshed her, there was a lot of things that just kind of messed up. So I ended up just kind of going back and smoothing out those areas, smoothing out the hands a little bit more. This was protruding a little bit too much. The palm was protruding just slightly too much. So I ended up going in and kind of just shaving that down just ever so slightly. Again, I would love for you guys to let me know if you guys want me to do the feet as well. That's something I don't mind if you want me to do the feet as well. I will definitely make a video on the feet as well. Just let me know, and I will. All right. So thank you guys so much for watching. Here I am kind of building out the calf muscles ever so slightly again because I feel like in the references that I have, I feel like they're just a little bit too thin. So I end up building out that muscle, the anatomy of that just a little bit more, and just kind of making that transition in the silhouette a little bit better. All right. So again, just let me know if you guys want me to do the feet, and I will. All right. And that's this video on hands. I just want to say thank you to my patrons. All right. Take care, you guys, and thank you guys so much for watching.